Okay, hello again Year 10. This is part B of your homework, and we're looking at questions 14 to 20 with a final task at the end of question 20. So at this stage we're going to look a little bit deeper into inversions, and I'm just going to show you an example of how inversions really work, this should help you a little bit. First of all, let's just take a look at the root chord information. Okay, so we've got a C chord, C, E, G, easiest chord to use, and I've underlined C because that's the name of the chord and it's the first note in the chord. And this is what we call a root chord, and this is the most normal version we can have. Now you write it by putting 1A. A means root chord, normal chord, the one we most commonly use, if you like. But we don't need to write the A. We could just write number 1 for the chord. Now there's another one that's first inversion, which we've looked at briefly in the previous video. This is where we have the E. Okay, the E becomes more important because it's the if you look at this, it's the lowest note in the chord. So it's still C, E, and G, but the E is the first note in the chord. It's the bass note. So we might have E, G, and C. In actual fact, you could have E, C, and G, quite possibly. But as long as the E is in the bass, that means that it's a first inversion chord of C major. We write it with a B. Okay. Now A was root note. If you put 1B, it means that it's the first inversion. And whenever we have B next to a chord, it means that the second note in the chord, in this case E, is actually at the bottom of the chord when we kind of play it on the piano. Now the third example, a bit more confusing, but same idea, is the second inversion. So in this case, again we're using a C chord. The G note, not chord, that's the chord. The G note goes in the bass. Again, we've still got C, E, and G, but here it's a different way round. G is the bass note, the lowest note. So we've got G, C, E. And again, you could have G, E, C if you wanted, but as long as the G is in the bass, that means we've got a second inversion, and we write that with a C. Okay, so if you see 1C, it means a second inversion on a chord of 1. G is in the bass. The same would work with G, for example, a G chord, G, B, D, and if it was, that's chord 5 in C major, so if it was 5C, it wouldn't be G, B, D. The D, which is the last note of a G chord, would be in the bass. So whatever is the last note of the chord goes on the bass line. So just let me play that for you. So instead of C, E, G, think of this G as going down to the bottom part of the chord. And that actually is what that chord is, and that's how it looks if you write the chord name out. Okay, so question 14. This is not a question that you need to see an example of on the piano, it's just you need to write the answer out. The question is this: why do we use inversions in composition? Why can't we just always use the root position chords, like C, E, G for C chord and F, A, C for F chord? Why do we sometimes use inversions? Question 15 to 20 will all have extension questions attached. If you can do the extension question, even better. Okay, here's question 15. I want to go from a C chord to an F chord. So that's from C to an F chord. But I want to make the smallest steps. I don't want to move my complete hand all the way up. So what can I do? I want to go from C to F. What inversion would I need to use on the F chord? Question 15A, which is an extension question for piano players and anyone who wants to extend their learning. I'm on a D diminished chord. What chord would sound good next? Question 16. I want to go from C to A minor. What inversion could I use on the A minor to make sure that I don't move all of my fingers? Question 16A, extension question. I'm on an augmented chord of G. Where to next? What chord would work well? Question 17. I want to go from A minor to C. What inversion shall I use on the C chord to make sure I don't move all of my fingers? 17A, extension question. I'm on an E augmented. Well, what chord shall I go to next? Question 18, there's two parts. Okay, so it's 18 and 18A, and there will be an 18B, which is also an extension. Question 18, I'm on a G chord. I want to go to a C chord. How can I do that with the smallest amount of steps so I don't use all of my fingers? I'm moving all at the same time. 18A, and this is for everybody now, there is a cadence. This is a cadence. If you don't know what a cadence is, you'll need to look it up. But I want you to tell me what chord, what cadence is being used here. So we've got chord 5 to chord 1. What cadence is that? And the extension question for piano players, I am on a C chord, and I want to go to a G chord. What cadence is that? Chord 1, C, to chord 5, G. Question 19. So on that C chord to a G chord. I want to do that without moving all of my fingers. How can I do that? C chord to a G chord. What inversion would I need on the G chord? Extension question on question 19 for piano players or anybody that likes to take on a challenge. I've talked about first inversions, second inversions, and of course the very normal root chord. Here's an extension question if you want to take on the challenge. There is also a third inversion. What is this? Question 20. So we've looked at major chords, minor chords, diminished chords, and augmented chords. And these all have patterns of 4 plus 3, 3 plus 4, 3 plus 3, 4 plus 4. This is really an extension question for the whole class if you get to this. I want you to play 3 diminished chords, or look at 3 diminished chords. So we've got C, diminished. We have, let's say, D diminished. And let's go G diminished. Now we're going to play the chords that work really well after each chord. So from C diminished, it works well if you go to a G chord, an inversion of a G chord, but a G chord all the same. From a D chord, D diminished, we end up going to an A minor. And from the G diminished, we end up going to a D minor. This is a tricky question, and the question is there a pattern when we go from a diminished chord to another chord? Some are majors, some are minor, but is there a pattern? And that's quite a long video, so I've decided I'll give you a little break on the final task because you've worked really, really hard. We'll leave it there. Thank you.